Well, Commissioner, as I mentioned, you have an impressive slate of opponents, 18 candidates, 2 of whom are fellow commissioners. Why do you think you're the best candidate to lead the city into the future with this new form of government?
Leadership and vision. You know, I've been the standard bearer for public safety and livability in my just over 18 months on city council. That means taking on the hardest issues, homelessness, crime, response times in the first responder system, leaning in. And I've centered every single day whether families can thrive in the city of Portland, whether seniors can age in place, whether entrepreneurs and businesses can grow, and that we're a welcoming place for everyone, not just able-bodied men, that everyone can be safe and thrive in the city of Portland. I will take that forward in leading the city as we emerge and define what a post-pandemic city looks like.
Well, critics say that you've really tapped into the anger and frustration of voters over homelessness and crime. But they say you're a grandstander, that you're full of bluster, that you're angry, but that you have shown a lack of substance and results. How would you counter that criticism, and what specific results can you point to?
Well, your 911 wait time is down about 35% today, or non-emergency is down 60%. That's as a result of my leadership. We invested in first responders and are seeing substantial improvements in those areas. Outdoor drug use is now illegal in the city of Portland. I led that charge last summer and turned and put pressure on the state legislature to change its approach to drug use, and we're seeing rewards. I also confronted the really difficult issues of how we show compassion for those on the streets without enabling really destructive behaviors. So I stopped the distribution of tents and tarps. At the same time, I've supported shelter before it was popular, task sites and safe rest villages. And so I've leaned in on confronting the really hard issues collaboratively, not just grandstanding, actually sitting down and talking through hard issues, but not backing away on families and seniors and the people who make our community what it is.
With your particular leadership style and the fact that in this new form of government, the mayor will have no veto power, some of those critics have questioned whether you can get along with and help lead a 12-person city council. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, your next mayor, it has to be a champion and a leader for the city of Portland. You have much more explicit responsibility in being the one who sets the vision for the city of Portland, selling its story across this country. So whoever is your next mayor, and I think it's going to be me, has to be willing to go and advocate for the city and sell its story. Secondly, I've spent over 20 years as a transaction lawyer. There is no success without an agreement. There is no success without a deal. That's deeply embedded in my DNA. Last, I'd encourage folks to watch the steering committee for the joint office last week on Friday. We had to confront some really tough issues between the city and county, ones that we may not agree on, but I did it civilly. I offered up solutions, still held to my guns on the key issues. No screaming and yelling, no personalizing, confronting the tough issues, but addressing it directly and I think we'll do that with the next council.
One of your opponents, Keith Wilson, says he has an answer, a solution to unsheltered homelessness, and he can end unsheltered homelessness by the end of June of next year. You have been known, you've kind of talked about this already, for your hard line on homelessness, opposing or limiting giving out tarps and tents, also taking, kind of wanting to really support and back tough enforcement of a no camping ban. Do you have a plan for addressing unsheltered homelessness? How would you see your role as mayor in addressing homelessness if you're elected?
So multiple components. First of all, we have to continue to invest in shelter. So the task sites and safe rest villages, these are the city programs that couple shelter and pods usually with real reasonable wraparound services. We're having success with that component of our response. We're seeing people get placed in permanent housing and supportive housing coming out of our safe rest villages and task sites. So we need to continue to lean in on that. As your next mayor, you have to be a strong advocate at the state level for behavioral health services, mental illness and addiction. And so it's got to be a component. That's not a part the city can solve by itself, but we have to be advocates for access in our community. But yes, enforcement has to be a component of this. We have a substantial portion of our homeless that are migratory. And when folks look to other states like Idaho, which Keith often cites, people forget that was one of the toughest states in the country for homeless. In fact, that's why we had a really tough Ninth Circuit decision. It was in response to how tough Idaho and Boise were on homelessness. We want to encourage people to enroll in our services, and we want people to get on the path to recover. That has to be a value. but there is no solution to homelessness in our community if we don't enforce our laws. We will continue to see folks turn down our services. Just to give a specific example, one recent analysis of our offers of service in the city of Portland found that something like 70% of those offered shelter on the streets said no. And any policymaker has to recognize that reality. One last thing. Every mayoral candidate for the last 20 years has promised to end unsanctioned camping. Mayor Wheeler, incredibly educated, incredibly experienced, made that promise 8 years ago. And with all due respect to Keith, Mayor Wheeler had much more experience and much more training when he made the claim. That has not gone well. We have to be realistic. An urban city is always going to have some level of homelessness. There's always going to have some component on our streets. What we can do is we can be better. Our city of Portland used to be cleaner. It used to be safer. And we lean in on that and build a comprehensive plan that gets those folks who are willing to enroll in services, but also addresses those that refuse services and do damage to our community.
This ties into that in public safety. You've said you want to make Portland the safest city in America, and you've talked about hiring 200 more police officers so that we have about 1,000 sworn officers. How exactly would you make Portland safer by doing that, and how would you attract that many officers when it's pretty tough to recruit officers today?
We're actually getting some success in recruitment. Our pipeline is getting better. We've been able to shorten the timeline at the state. So the input into Portland Police is actually better than many urban police departments right now. I think Chief Day's done a good job there. The big component is retention, and we need to make sure that we create an environment from the next mayor that's supportive of law enforcement, that is a champion for it, and that we hold on to our good police officers. It will have to be a component of those two pieces to get to the 1,000 police officer number, that you are retaining the good ones you have and you continue to bring new ones in. A really good part of the story I hope that Portlanders are aware of is how much more diverse and how much more local our police department is becoming. We're recruiting more and more from the neighborhoods and from the metro area, and seeing the diversity of our candidates. I go to almost every swearing in we have at Portland Police. We're getting some success there. But it is essential that your next mayor is an advocate for police, given what has occurred in recent years in Western cities, where you had really some fringe groups go after them. It's fine to call for accountability among our public safety officers, but that made it very hard to retain police officers, and your next mayor needs to be their champion.
You and Commissioner Rubio have been in the news recently for a number of traffic violations, and we're going to talk to Carmen Rubio in the next segment about her 150 parking violations. But you've had some problems too, and the Willamette Week reported that you had your driver's license suspended twice a couple of decades ago, and also had 7 speeding tickets between 1998 and 2013. How does that square with your positioning of yourself as a law and order candidate? It would seem to show a certain disregard for the law.
Well, gray hair slows you down, and since becoming a father of 3, and frankly making mistakes in youth, you slow down, you calm down, and I think most men 50 years old would probably say something to that effect, right? That you do chill out. I think the fact that I had speeding tickets when I was 24 has very little to do that I want my parents and the seniors down the street and children in the city of Portland to be safe. I'm acutely aware of the example I need to set. I don't even jaywalk anymore since becoming an elected official, as much because of the optics as the reality. So I'm very much aware of my responsibility as an elected official, and unfortunately I have slowed down as I've gotten older.
Well, a really big issue nationally and locally is the lack of housing.
Yes.
And there's a group of young Portlanders who are saying they're being forced out of Portland, priced out. They're facing evictions. They can't afford to live in the city anymore. And they have complained that you don't seem to have a plan to address the housing affordability crisis with real solutions. How would you answer their complaint in about a minute?
Strongly disagree. I mean, my plan involves reducing the cost of development in the city of Portland. We charge incredibly high system development charges, incredibly high fees, and often will require developers to invest substantial amounts in infrastructure in addition to those costs. So top of my list right now is reducing the overall cost to build. That will affect housing across the continuum. Second, we need to redeploy Prosper Portland. It once did a really good job of producing middle housing and across the spectrum. It has been entirely focused on social engineering, it feels, in the last 15 years. We need to get it focused on big projects, including building housing. Last but not least is approval requirements at the state level are 120 days. If you apply for a permit in the city of Portland, you have to waive that requirement to get it in the process. We need to comply with state law and how long we're processing permits. And also, your next mayor has to attract capital to the city of Portland. The one thing we've done okay in recent years is build federally subsidized housing. What we're failing to do is attracting capital into the city of Portland to produce the market rate housing. I think I'm the best positioned in this race to go tell that story to banks and funding sources across the country.
Commissioner, we're almost out of time. I want to give you 30 seconds for a final pitch to voters.
Well, thank you so much again, Laurel, for having me. You know, I have been the standard bearer for public safety during my entire tenure on city council. I plan to carry that forward. And it's time for Portland's rose to bloom again, and it can. We'll center it on seniors and families. We'll center on those who create and build. And we'll lean on being one of the safest, most beautiful, and healthiest cities in America again. I'm looking forward to leading the city in that regard.
Commissioner, thank you for joining us here on Straight Talk. If you'd like to find out more about Commissioner Rene Gonzalez, check out his website. It's reneforportland.com. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Laura.
And up next, mayoral candidate Commissioner Carmen Rubio joins us. We're back in 2 minutes.